Hey, in this video I'm once again going to show you the process of building a guitar from a DIY kit, basically a set you assemble yourself. In this case I received the kit from the music store Thomann, which owns the Harley Benton brand, because they're currently running a pretty cool event called the DIY Kit Challenge. It's a contest where you can build a guitar from a DIY kit and take a part in the competition. There are vouchers worth a few €100 for Thomann up for grabs. So if you want to learn more about the details, I'll leave a link in the description. You can click it and read up on how it all works. As some of you probably already know, this will be my fourth guitar build from one of these DIY kits. I bought all the previous ones myself and I'm really happy with them, so I'm glad I could get another one for free this time. And I want to add that no one told me what I should or shouldn't say about all of this, so I'm going to be totally honest and share everything, including the not so great parts I ran into during the build. Unfortunately, there were some issues, but that's always something you have to keep in mind with these kinds of projects. Sometimes things go wrong and you'll need to fix them. As you can see, and if you know me, you won't be surprised, I decided to do something weird with this guitar. I already started cutting a hole for an extra PCB. Of course, it's going to be a built-in effects, exactly 3 effects. Since I built guitar pedals, I thought it would be cool to make a guitar with a unique effect inside. I actually designed the PCB before I even got the DIY kit. I already built one SG with built-in effects, but for this one I used a PCB that I originally made for something else. So in this project we will make something special. This time I wanted to do something fully dedicated and I simplified the controls. I didn't want this guitar to have a million knobs like the last one, which had 6 knobs and 1 switch. This will have 3 knobs and 3 position switch. And the effect will be turned on with a push-pull pot. You'll see later how I soldered everything together. By now part of the process has already passed, cutting the hole in the body for the effect. And I'll be honest, that was the hardest part for me. I'm not exactly best friends with my router, as you might have seen, and I cut the hole pretty unevenly. Luckily I was able to fix it up with some filler and make it look decent. Afterward I patiently cleaned up the hole with a chisel and some sandpaper. Then I drilled the holes for the potentiometers. So now I'm going to sand the body and neck with sandpaper. You need to know that all the wooden parts in this DIY kits come pre-finished with primer, so if you just want to paint the guitar normally, you don't have to sand it too much. I used a kind of lacquer stain that I rubbed in first with a sponge and then with a cloth. The main reason I did that is because I want to do a relic finish later. I will do that by scraping the body with a wire brush, and I wanted the worn down areas to have a darker tone underneath. That was the main goal with this paint job. I did the same thing with the neck. As you can see, I masked it off with a tape so I wouldn't get paint on the binding. I also taped up the truss rod hole with a little wad of tape. If you want to finish your guitar with stain only, you will need to sand both the neck and the body much more than I did. Otherwise, the stain will just sit on the top of the sealer and won't soak into the wood properly. It will rub off easily when you add more layers. I knew that would happen and I did it that way on a purpose, especially on the neck, so it would look a bit worn out and old, and I think it actually turned out pretty great. Also with this kind of paint job it will wear off more easily over time, which will give it an even more natural relic look later on. I applied several coats of that stain varnish to both the neck and the body, so that when I go over it with a wire brush, it doesn't go straight down to the bare wood right away, but instead leaves some darker streaks. And I have to say, at first I was doing everything with a sponge, but then I switched to a cloth, and honestly it's way nicer to work with a cloth. I only use the sponge lightly between coats to rub down some areas and clean up a bit, just to make sure everything would stick better. Now we're moving on to soldering the circuit board for this custom effect. It's based on the FV1 chip, which is a digital solution I also use in some of my other effects. This board though is designed specifically for this project. The FV1 is a great platform for creating all kinds of effects, mostly spatial ones like delay and reverb. Some people also make octave effects or even distortion with it. I usually avoid distortion type stuff on this chip. I'm more into spatial effects. For this guitar I ultimately decided to go with 3 effects. One of them will be a beat crusher with modulation, which in some settings sounds a bit like a ring modulator. The second preset will be an octaver with both a down and octave up. This octaver has a pretty unique character because of how the chip behaves and what you can do with it. It actually sounds a bit like the pitch bay that Earthquaker devices used to make. The last effect will be a reverb with modulation, but I will show you that later. PCB is ready, so let's finish the painting. As you can see, I'm now applying the final coat of that brown stain varnish, and I will soon prepare the guitar for spray painting. As you can see, I mounted this little wooden strip that will help me to hold and rotate the body while painting, and I will reach the all necessary spots without worrying about touching anything by accident. So I use the towel hook to hang it from the cabinet doors like this. So yeah, fully DIY mode. The spray cans I'm using are from the Motip brand, from the Crafts series. All these colors have a glossy finish, but at the end I also use a matte clear coat from the same series. And I've got to say, I'm really impressed with how fast the paint dries. I can actually paint an entire guitar from start to the finish in one day, and it dries properly. Of course, I'm doing a relic finish, so if I wanted it to be a flawless, shiny finish, that would be harder and I'd need to be more careful between coats. But since it's a relic, I didn't worry too much about that. So yeah, if you want to paint your guitar without a relic finish, you might have to put in a bit more time and effort. As you can see, I got it nicely painted. Now it's time to ruin it. I'm using a wire brush and sandpaper. I've done this before on the other guitars and I go over areas that would realistically get worn over time, places with lot of hand contact, like a upper part, around the knobs and some random spots too, to make it look like a guitar has been through hell, like a father after a payday. So yeah, I really enjoy relic finish, and now I'm going to screw in the wooden support again, because I'm going to hit everything with the clear coat. I still got the neck left. I will just rub the back of the neck with this sponge or whatever it is, I'm not even sure where I got it, but it works great for sanding. So I rub it down with that a bit, and in a moment we will also put a decal in front. I printed my logo on a transparent foil ready to print in a laser printer, and it looks like this. As you can see, I just prepared it around the whole logo and now cleaning with IPA and sticking. And that's it, decal is on, time for the wire brush. I've rolled it up a bit here, also on the sides near the tuners, and I'll soon hit everything with the clear coat. Like I mentioned, I'm using a matte clear so it won't be shiny, which I prefer. Same goes for the body. In total I applied 3 coats of the clear. One thing to note, 1 can of color and 1 can of clear, it's just barely enough. If you'll need to touch anything up later, I recommend getting 2 cans of each. And now it's time to take care of the neck. I will check the threads, and this is kind of an optional step. And to be honest with you, the neck wasn't in a terrible shape. I mean the threads especially. The only issue was that it was very dry, so it needed a good bit of oiling. I'm using this Dunlop fretboard oil. But as you can see, I decided to use this as an opportunity to practice the thread leveling again, so I just evened them out a bit. Honestly, they came from the factory in a pretty good shape. But I figured I wouldn't waste the chance to get some more thread work practice in, so I just did it. Recently I also ordered a different crowning file, you'll see it in a moment. I got it from AliExpress for around 40 Polish złotych, so about $10 maybe, 10 euro. And honestly, it's much better than the one I used in the previous videos, especially the video on my Polish channel, which is 5 hours length, and you can see the full process of building my blue Stratocaster. If you want, you can check it out, you can turn on the subtitles, so it shouldn't be a big deal to watch it. So if you want, you can grab one from AliExpress. The handle looks really bad, but actually the file is fine and works great. Also, I recently picked up some polishing rubber blocks from AliExpress, and I've gotta say they actually work quite well. In the end, I have to admit I didn't spend enough time polishing. I could put in a bit more effort there. So if you're doing this, once you think it's done, give it just a bit more time. Because I get the feeling some of the threads could have been polished a bit better. Also, I haven't yet bought any polishing paste or a mini rotary tool to do it more properly, but I will definitely need it soon. You can see it well in this footage, but nearly the inlays, the fretboard has some minor chips or defects. I decided not to bother filling them, and honestly it doesn't bother me at all. We'll see, hopefully the inlays won't fall out over time. If they do, I'll definitely let you know. In my previous kits they haven't fallen out, so I mean these aren't 20k Gibsons, so sorry. If you want falling inlays, go buy a Gibson. As you can see here, I'm using snail tape, copper tape, to make a shielding layer and protect the circuit from extra noise and interference. To be honest, I don't know if it was totally necessary. With this build, all the wires are shielded anyway, but still I figured since there's going to be an effect built into it, especially right here, I wanted to add some shielding in this area where I will mount the effect. And you know how it goes, once you start shielding, might as well do it everywhere. So I also shielded the cavity with the pots and the one for the effect. I'm cleaning up all the holes with a file so everything fits nicely. Here I also soldered a ground wire to the copper tape. Solder sticks really well to this tape, which is a major advantage over aluminum tape. The electronics that come with the kit is pre-soldered, so you don't need to do any soldering. Just plug everything together, everything has quick connects, which is definitely a big plus. But of course I had to make a few changes, including installing a stereo jack. I had one lying around from another project because I forgot to buy one. I also had to install a push-pull potentiometer to act as an on-off switch for the effect. As you can see on the right side there's the battery I'm using for this circuit. It's a 9V rechargeable battery, and the best part of it, it has a USB-C port on the bottom, so you can charge it even with the regular phone charger. The important thing is that it actually outputs 9 volts. Some of the rechargeable 9-volt batteries I've tested actually give only 7.4 volts, and in that case some effects won't even turn on. I'm sure some of you have had that issue. In this particular case it wouldn't have been a problem because the FV1 chip runs on 3.3 volts anyway, and there's a voltage regulator on the board. So now some wires had to be soldered on and some removed entirely. So I had to think through the whole thing and look around. While doing this, always remember to check everything with a multimeter. Test the connections, make sure what's disconnected, it's disconnected, and what needs to be connected, it's connected. And of course, don't rush. Take your time and do everything slowly and with patience. Honestly, I soldered everything in this video and assembled it all without even testing if it worked. I just believed it would, and thankfully it did. I was super happy when I plugged into amp and everything worked without any problems. Just awesome. Next, I will start mounting the PCB for the built-in effect. The pots and the switches aren't soldered yet. I always screw them in first and then solder them, so everything sets nicely and there's no stress on the PCB. I didn't record this part, but between these two chambers I drilled a hole for the wires, which I'm now using to connect the ground. I soldered it directly to the strip and figured that would be enough, and basically was. So remember, you can always solder something to this copper wire. I mentioned stereo jack before. It's needed to connect the battery and easily use it as a switch, so if we will disconnect the jack, it will break the ground from the battery. So the negative side of the battery is connected to the ring, and the positive side of the battery goes straight to the PCB of our built-in effects, of course to the positive rail of power. As you can see, I installed one stock pickup in this silver casing, and the other pickup, which I'm preparing right now, I got from Camila at Merlin. It's a custom humbucker and she told me it's an experiment, so I can't wait to test it out. Of course, while recording this voiceover, I already tested this guitar and this pickup, so yeah, I can say that it's fine and works great, and I believe you will like it too. It also has coil splitting options, so at some point we might do a mod for that later too. If you're interested in this video about the split coil modification, let me know in a comment, so I will be more motivated to record it. And I know if you noticed, but under one of the bridge studs I also ran a ground wire, because, well, it has to be done. So yeah, it's really close to the finish. I was really excited in that part. I just wanted to finally play this guitar. So as you can see, I'm screwing on the neck and about to start installing the tuners. The way I always do it. First I find all the screws, then lightly screw them in, and afterward tighten them from the other side, just to make sure everything lines up nicely and there's no unnecessary tension or anything screwed in at the wrong angle. And here there's a total screw up. The screws that come for attaching the strap buttons were such a poor quality. It was like they were made of Play-Doh. I twisted the heads of both of them. Luckily I had another set of screws and just used some slightly thicker ones. And I hope the neck will not break soon because of that. As you can see, now it's time for a final setup of the guitar. I adjusted the neck tension, now I'm setting the string height at the nut. The point here is, when you play on the first fret with the guitar tuned, you should get a note a half step higher. If it's too high, you will need to file the nut, and that's what I'm doing. I use this little triangular file. It might seem weird that the slots are kind of triangular, but I haven't noticed any major issues. It's important to angle them slightly so that the contact area is minimal and the string doesn't get stuck, which can make the guitar hard to tune and cause it to go out of tune quickly with the strings jumping around. Next step in this setup is adjusting bridge height. With this kind of tune-o-matic bridge, it's super simple. You just work with 2 screws. Now what's left is adjusting the intonation. On this type of bridge it's also pretty easy. We can do that with a small flat screwdriver. And a quick reminder, if the note is too sharp, you will need to increase the length of the scale, so move the saddle back, so to the right side. If the note is too flat, move it to the left side. Of course, if you are playing the left-handed guitar, it's in reverse. So as a quick summary, I've gotta say this SG DIY kit seems like the safest choice. Besides those screws, everything else was solid. So if you want to try and take a part in the DIY kit challenge, check the link in the video description. And I will be super thankful if you decide to order one of those kits using my ref links. You will find them also in the description. So you still have 1 month to enter this contest. You have a time until June 15th, so there's still a full month left. I think you've got plenty of time to do it nicely. And now, without further delay, let's hear how it sounds.